Hello, my name is Decimus Claudius, and I'm very glad that you could join us today on Nova Roma's 25th anniversary or birthday. I have with me today the praetor, Porcius Licinus, and I thank him for being in attendance today.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's good to be with our all our Nova Roma, really our extended family of citizens and querities with us today.
Definitely. Unfortunately, the other praetor, Petronius, who was very excited to join us from Washington, D.C., um, had some technical difficulties joining us from his cell phone. And regretfully, he can't attend this today, um, which is sad because he was looking forward to it. And I was also very excited to have both praetors together. However, we're still going to have a great uh, stream for you today. And with that, um, I just would like to, start it off. Basically, 25 years is quite a long time. How do you look on this milestone for 25 years of Nova Roma from the day it was founded to today?
I think the first and foremost, it shows that Nova Roma is not just a flash in the pan. It's not just an idea a couple guys in one country had. It wasn't something that was just a fad. It's something that's endured. It's something that's been around for a significant portion of many people's lives, and I think that bodes well for us. We've had births and deaths since the founding, and it shows that it's got longevity, and I hope that portends that it has a long future ahead of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure how many people originally founded Nova Roma. I believe it was just a few. And they signed a document 25 years ago yesterday that went into effect the next day. And it was just, I believe, a few people in Maine, or at least it was founded in Maine. And back then, I'm not sure um, about how well connected they were, because back in '98, we didn't have smartphones and the internet was much slower than it is today. So I mean, a lot has changed and evolved over these years.
It certainly has. Now, I can't recall the exact number off the top of my head, but I do know that our original the people who signed the original documents were numbered fewer than 30. So everything you see has grown from that. Um, as far as where they were geographically, I believe most of them were at that time in the Northeast United States. But again, we're truly an international organization now in every respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I purchased this from one of the founding members, Cassius, back in Maine in 2006. So back then, I actually visited a Maine Days event. So basically, there was a big festival in the town. I forgot where it was on the coast of Maine. And they also had a little section for Roman reenactors, which was really nice. And that was actually the first time I'd ever seen a Roman reenactment. And it was definitely interesting to see, all these, armors and tents and helmets, and to speak with them. And so for 2 years, it was my participation in Nova Roma was only on the mailing list, sending emails back and forth and reading. So how about you? When was the first time you met another Nova Roman and you went from just online to having a physical interaction with someone?
This might be shocking. I have never had a physical interaction with another Nova Roman. It has all been online,
Ah,
and I think that's
well,
that's purely due to geography, really.
definitely. I hope it changes soon, because there have been some conventions in the US and in various places in Europe. And obviously during the pandemic, the last few years, a lot of events were just canceled. But hopefully that'll change soon. I've only met other Nova Romans 3 times in my life. One time in 2006. Then the second time I met Lentulus in 2021. So that was a 15-year gap. But still, through electronic means, we're always well connected.
Absolutely.
I do want to just jump into the comment section because this is a live discussion. And I appreciate it a lot. Nerva wrote Salvete Omnes, and he's very welcome here, of course, as well as Octavius Astronomos. He also, welcomed us. And he actually wrote that it was in Kennebunk, Maine, where so that Maine Day happened. So thank you so much for that information. So just out of curiosity, how long have you been a member of Nova Roma?
I believe it's about 12 years now.
Okay.
It's sort of a strange way I even found Nova Roma in the first place. Like so many things on the internet, you look for something and you find something else. Many years ago, I had stumbled across a digital recreation of the layout of the city of Rome, ancient Rome, and I thought it was. Now this would be way back in the early 2000s, and virtual worlds, things like MMORGs were just beginning, and so it was to me it was fascinating to be able to have that virtual experience of strolling through the ancient forum and seeing how the various temples were laid out and how the city, just experiencing what it would be like to go through the city. And I couldn't help but be struck, due to the nature of the limitations of the technology at the time, there was no way to put any people in it. And of course, what's a city without people? But even just seeing the physical geometry of the city and being able to walk the streets and look up at the temples was, to me, just phenomenal. And a few years after that, I wanted to go back and find that site. And as I was searching, I found Nova Roma, and I found a community. And that was something I wasn't expecting. I was pleasantly surprised to find. And the more I explored that community, the more I found that I needed to be a member of it. And one thing led to the other, and here I am.
Well, I am very glad that that was the case. I remember I was actually searching online for things about Germania because I do like to travel. So I was thinking about where are some sites such as, and I ended up visiting, for instance, Saalborg, which is a reconstructed Roman fort right next to Frankfurt. But like in my searches for seeing, looking for Roman sites in Germany, I stumbled upon Nova Roma as well. And I just noticed Nerva wrote in the chat that you've been a member since April the 18th of 2011. I like that.
2011. Okay. In 2010, I would have found it, and by 2011, my Tyrosium was complete.
Yeah, because it does take some time for the application to be processed and approved.
Well, back in those days, we and I realize we've just restarted this, but back then, there was a waiting period where you kind of had to prove yourself, and so that ended in April of 2011 then. And for several years that was suspended, and I don't really know that really helps anything. I don't know that it really brought in more people to suspend that. And I think when you go through it and you have to pass a little quiz and you have to think about it a little bit, I think that makes your membership a little more meaningful.
I've actually never taken the quiz because when I joined, there wasn't one. However, I do think that the quiz isn't that terribly difficult because if they ask, you know, dates and this and that. I mean, I'm sure many people, or, you know, ask questions in Latin, many people can't, because it really is a community. So internationally, regardless of, you know, if you're a Latin scholar, or, you know, you just graduated high school and you're interested in Roman history, but you really haven't had much contact with it. You know, it really is for everybody. And it's nice to see growth in the different provinces. So Nera wrote that he had to wait a year before
Wow.
being approved.
I recall it was
Wow.
like 3 months for me or something like that
Yeah.
from the time I made my application.
Although it is quite a challenge for the applications to be approved. If I recall correctly, there's only a few people that can do it, and they have to make sure that, like, for instance, your Roman name is correct. I actually, when I joined, I didn't have a proper Roman name because so my third name was actually a family name, and I was accepted with that. I was actually accepted with um, a fourth name as well, which was taken away a few years later. So back in the day, I think I was Decimus Claudius Aquilius Germanicus. So a few years afterwards, they were like, "You didn't conquer Rome. Germanicus is removed." And then, um, I was told a few years later about my third name. There was a slight typo, and only at Lentulus' prodding last year was the typo officially corrected. So, I mean, it is definitely a learning process for everybody. And I heard that, like, you know, applications come in from China and all over so many places. And basically, at the end of the day, since it's a community based on, like, the Romanitas and, like, you know, living and or learning, you know, about ancient Rome and, like, the Roman way of life, to various extents. It's just basically to see if, you know, you're serious about ancient Roman history rather than just, you know, willy-nilly setting off an application. And I've heard that there's been some applications from China, from mainland China, although I haven't seen any members, so I'm not sure how the applications, you know, look like, and you know, what was going on there.
Well, I hope they're not in Chinese characters because I don't know too many Nova Romans who are fluent in that. But um, you know, no, we've had applications from all over. One thing I wanted to comment, first thing I wanted to say is, if you see me looking over here, for those of you online, I have another computer set up, so when something gets referenced, I can look up things from time to time over here. So that's why I'm looking over there. But what I wanted to say was the name process and the strictness, you know, the rigor with which we hold people to the Roman names, I think is beneficial. It makes it a little less like a sort of a party society, and really emphasizes just, you know, the importance we place on all this. We follow, and it's educational as well, because before I came into this, I knew a little bit about Rome and Roman history and how things worked back then and how they might work today. But I had no idea that Romans had three names, or what those three names signified, and you know, what a proper Roman name was. And this process walked me through that, and it taught me something, and I learned something, and I was grateful for that. And I hope other people are as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of names, can you just walk us through how you came up with your three names?
Yeah, of course. Um, so, and it's informed by my macronational history. Okay, because certainly there's a lot. You know, well, of course, I live in the United States, and if you look at early U.S. history, the founding the founding fathers of the U.S. were very well read and knew their history, knew their mythology, and were very aware of Greek culture and Roman culture and the history, medieval and early Renaissance history that came before them. And for that reason, they looked to that history, and especially the history of the Roman Republic, as a guideline of how to set up a new nation. And certain Romans really appealed to them. One of whom was Publius Agricola. And so when the founding fathers would wrote the Constitution of the United States, our founding document, there was a need to explain it to the rest of the citizens and convince them that this was a proper document for guiding a country. And so they wrote a series of letters to newspapers and magazines, and they were anonymous letters. And they each one of these letters would explain a part of the Constitution and why they thought it was a proper document and why they thought it was well written. And they would sign them anonymously as Publius. So that had to be my first choice of a Roman name for the first name. And another tradition here is we admire Cato. Cato the Younger quite a bit. Cato the Elder as well, but Cato the Younger and his stand for freedom, for liberty, for the many of the virtues that defined the Roman Republic. We admire him a great deal, and I found that Cato was one of those names that was already taken many times. And so I was encouraged to find something else, maybe something like it. And I thought, well, why couldn't there's no reason why I couldn't pick his gens. So, that became Porcius. And that led me on a little rabbit hole of learning about that gens and learning that they were from Tuscularum and that they were pig farmers. And that's why it's Porcius and where we get the English word pork. And that just left, the family name. And so I went looking up, and there were only 3 family names associated with that gens in Roman times, in the times of the Republic. And Licinus was the family that seemed most active in civic life, and that was most likely a little more closely associated with the Cato family than the other one. So I went with that, and it seemed to suit me as well. So I'm Licinus.
I have to say that you put a lot more thought into it than I did. I mean, my 3 names, first one is Decimus because of the movie Gladiator. That's one of the several things that contributed to my interest in ancient Roman history. Claudius is my favorite emperor, and I had to do a little project on him in my senior year of high school. And that's really the absolute first time I was really going into learning about ancient Roman history that has nothing to do with religion or the Bible, but just pure ancient Roman history in of itself. And then Aquilinus, well, I like to travel a lot. So it's kind of eagle-like, you fly around on airplanes.
Okay. Yeah.
Not as noble, not as much thought, but everybody. That's the beauty of it. Everybody could find inspiration in various ways. You could look on a tombstone and adopt a name if it fits. Why not? There are a couple of comments that I'm going to read out. One is from Astronomus. He wrote that there have been people interested in Rome, China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. Definitely. We really encourage that. Those countries, unfortunately, don't have any ancient Roman ruins, of course. And I believe in Japan, there are a few museums with some Roman items. But obviously, in the US or in and around the Mediterranean and Europe, there's much more museums and much more just prevalence of ancient Roman history around you. So, I mean, even in the U.S., there's plenty of ancient or museums with ancient Roman things, and I would love to see a very vibrant community, in those Asian countries. So that's definitely something to look forward to for the future. Um, oh wow! And I never wrote that there's a member, Lucius Albius Capito, from United Arab Emirates since 2000. I wasn't aware of that. That's
Yeah.
very nice.
When I said every corner of the world, I was serious. I've had some time to go pawing through the album Civicum to see who's here, and it's an amazing variety. It really is truly an international society, and during the time of the Civil War, when I had to reach out to many of those people, I was really impressed and humbled, if you will, by just what a large, diverse group and how widespread around so many different countries, so many different cultures, all coming back to Rome and all coming back to the great civilization that had preceded us all.
Absolutely. One more comment from Nerva before we move on. It's a very interesting question, actually. Do you think that it is no problem if people don't know anything about Rome, but they want to learn it in Nova Roma as members? And I mean, that's a very good question, because obviously what connects us is, depending on how you define it, interest in ancient Roman history or desire to live sort of how the ancient Romans did. There's different things that combine us. But if someone has absolutely no knowledge, I'm not sure how well served they were unless they're interested to learn.
Well, this is why I'm in favor of a tyrochium, okay? And that's it obviously it shouldn't be so hard that it drives people away, but it should be just challenging enough that it separates somebody who is maybe interested in it for a day from someone who's interested in it for a year, a decade, a lifetime. And I think that that's that process of separating people out is all we really need. If somebody is willing to suffer through that, and it's not a lot of suffering, it really isn't, then it kind of establishes that they want to learn. And if they really want to learn, they will learn. And I think that's all that's really required.
When I joined, I had so no knowledge of Latin, absolutely zero. And I had one class on ancient history, which is ancient European history. And also in college, I visited Rome for a few days and as an exchange student. So I didn't know much about ancient Roman history. I had a few points of contact and a bit of an interest. And yeah, I definitely thought that it's a place to learn from others. And it definitely is. For instance, the other praetor, Petronius, unfortunately, he couldn't join. But I mean, he's one of the leading, he couldn't join today for the stream due to technical reasons, like I mentioned earlier. It's quite a shame, but I mean, he's a leading Roman reenactor, and he creates his own boots, his own armor. I mean, it's such amazing, his dedication and attention to detail, and also the fact that there's an archaeological survey and dig close to where he is that he's been a part of. And, for instance, Lentulus, who is actually, I'm not sure if he's leading or organizing the main celebrations today that are going on right now in Budapest, Hungary, in Aquincum. And his Latin ability is, I think, unmatched out of anybody that I know. So it's amazing to see, people with kind of like, best in their fields in Nova Roma. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those, but there's still a place for me, and there's a place obviously for everybody. You know, you don't have to be the best Latin speaker, or you don't have to make your own make your own like Roman armor to be a part of Nova Roma.
Well, and again, another confession: I'm not fluent in Latin at all. But if you send me a message in Latin, I will first try to parse it out and try to understand the gist of what you're saying, and then I will start hitting the tools and I will sit down and I'll translate it to myself and learn what you're saying that way, rather than just automatically throw it into a translator and say, oh, well, that's what they said. Or worse, and we've had this in the past, just ignore the message. And that to me, I think that's a missed opportunity. One thing I want to say was a total revelation to me to understand classical pronunciation for the first time, because I'd never been exposed to that before Nova Roma. So that is something Nova Roma has brought into my life, and I think it's really enriched my life. To me, thinking of him as Julius Caesar instead of Julius Caesar is it explains so much to me about how the world has developed since then. And so even just going back, when you look and try to stumble through something like the Aeneid in the original Latin, and even if you don't understand all the words, just pronouncing them out loud correctly, you see how the poetry really flows in a way that it does not if you use ecclesiastical pronunciation. That to me was a revelation, and one that it's brought joy into my life, and I hope it brings joy into other people's lives as well.
Definitely. Last year during the Games of Apollo, I actually made a video with Lentulus. We both read excerpts of Livy, and it was right after the Battle of Zama with Scipio Africanus. And in the passage, the Games of Apollo were mentioned. So I actually asked Lentulus, hey, why don't we do a video? I'll say everything in these chapters and read it off in English, and you do it in Latin. And he loved the idea. And it was really interesting just to hear very fluid Latin pronunciation. I don't understand Latin. However, I did the reading in English, and I have the book, so I know exactly what he was saying, almost word for word. And so in such a crisp and fluid manner, it was definitely a pleasure to hear, even though, like I said, Latin is always something that I have on the back burner. It's kind of like a mountain to climb that I've been putting off for a long time. But oh well, but it's not a big deal. Obviously, it's nice to learn Latin, but in Nova Roma, the main language to communicate is English, just because there's people from so many different countries. Yeah. And as a native English speaker, we have it pretty easy, don't we?
Well, we do. Now, one thing I really want to impress upon anyone listening here is that we went through a period where we weren't as tolerant of other languages, and I thought that was a big mistake. And I'm glad to see that Latin is so encouraged now, much more than it was, and that other languages are accepted. And I think that's definitely the right way to go. It's a community. We don't all speak the same language. We use English as a matter of convenience. Ideally, we would all use Latin.
Definitely. For instance, back towards the beginning of the year, I think it was the first week in January, I actually organized a meetup in the Provincia Germanica in Hanover, and we were all speaking German. So, I mean, it's also perfectly fine. I know that I think last year there was also someone who joined. He was a Spanish speaker, and he didn't speak. I don't think he speaks English. However, there are other Spanish speakers in the ranks that could communicate with him. So ideally, we would have a lot of strong provinces, and I believe in the past Spain was definitely one of the stronger provinces. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it is the case today. But we still have a huge future ahead of us. So hopefully, that could really be developed as a province again, especially since they have a lot of history. Obviously, the Romans were in Spain. There's so many sites. There's so many museums. That also mean that there's people interested in a bunch of legions that do reenactments. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to, like a strong, vibrant community in Spain, and also Spanish speakers from around the world.
Well, one thing I've found in groups and societies and organizations like this is that small groups are often transient. I mean, you get 10 or 12 people together, they might stay together for 20 years, but odds are they probably won't. As the numbers grow, then there's a more of a core group of people that even if somebody moves out of town or somebody else moves in, there's always that core group there to sustain them. So I think that there's a critical mass there we have to reach in each community to really have an established presence. And I think you'll see that ebb and flow in some of our less populated communities. And in the larger communities where there are lots of people interested in Romanitas, I think you'll see more and more stability and growth. And so it's just a matter of really not being shy about what we do here and how it interests us, and letting other people who may not know that they do want to know more about Rome, that we're here and we exist and we are a resource. And as our numbers grow, I think we'll have that stability and we'll have more people involved.
Definitely. Now, obviously, geography is a big issue. Obviously, some people live in the same town as other Nova Romans, and other people live in a country where there might only be just a couple. What do you think are the best ways for people to be involved in Nova Roma that unfortunately don't live in reasonable distance to others? So, like yourself, just online connections and not in-person connections. So what are the best ways to contribute and really, get the most out of Nova Roma?
Wow. I'm almost overwhelmed by that because it's going to be different for every person. Each person is going to be interested in a different aspect of it. It's like almost like having a time machine. If you went back, 2,000 years, what would you want to see? What would you want to do? Who would you want to talk to? It's going to be different for everybody. So there's so many things, and some of the things that you can participate in is just get on Discord, just get on the main list and see what other people are doing. Check out the Solitas and see what people are doing there. If you're in a cooking Solitas, you can trade recipes and try Roman food. There's Roman music you can listen to online. There certainly every year we have the Ludi, we play games, the mock chariot races, things like that. You can follow the celebrations. If you're a cultor, there are many resources regarding the religion that can help you out and make your own worship more meaningful to you. So, I mean, it's totally up to the individual. What is your particular area of interest? But there are many outlets.
Definitely. And one thing about Nova Roma that is interesting, very interesting aspect, is that there's many ways that you could take an initiative. I mean, I'm part, for instance, in the macro world of a coin club. And I mean, I'm one of the youngest people. I really don't have a say. I really can't contribute because obviously the people that are giving the lectures are professors or this or that. But I mean, in Nova Roma, there's so many ways where individual people could take an initiative. For instance, I saw a call about Twitch streaming, which we're using actually right now. and I had no idea about live streaming. I've never heard of Twitch. I never even heard of Discord. So not only did this open up a world to me, but basically I thought that it would be great to have Nova Roma programming and not just board games. And then I spoke with Ignarius, who's in charge of it, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you want, as long as it's Roman themed, is perfectly fine." So like, I thought that was a really interesting idea, just to contribute like that. And some months ago, I thought, well, there's a philosophy book club. I'm not that strong into philosophy, but I do like, to read books about ancient Rome, literature, or, nonfiction informative books. And then I talked to Lentulus, and then I'm not sure if it started a book club, but, found other people interested in a Nova Roma book club, that it doesn't have to do about philosophy, but it's still very interesting. I mean, we read a book about Venus, and now we're reading The Golden Ass, which I've never read before. And it was suggested by one of our members, who actually has written, not only is a professor, but has actually written several novels set in ancient Rome, and is also a very good resource for information. So due to his suggestion, I mean, I'm reading that now, and we're going to speak about it towards the end of April on Zoom. So, I mean, just because, you're new, or just because you might not be a professor or have all the knowledge, doesn't mean that you can't actively contribute. I mean, that's what I find really interesting. Also, when I first joined, I was actually asking about coins, and I was kind of like pushing the discussion, and then actually led to the second minting of coins. So I was really glad to be a part of that. I'm not sure what year that was, maybe back in 2005 or 6 or so. So I definitely like how Nova Roma lets you take the initiative. Also, when it comes to meetings, I mean, you could have a very formal meeting, such as, like I said, right now going on in Budapest, where they have many different magistrates, and they have sacrifices and processions, and so very formal affairs, to just, casual meetups or just discussions, and everything in between, in person, online. And I really like that. I like the fact that you could just really actively be a part of it, rather than just be a bystander.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. Now, many years ago, I was involved in a group called the Society of Creative Anachronism, which you might have heard, and that was a medieval recreation group. And so maybe I kind of had a head start on all this. That goes back way back to the 70s. But one thing I wanted to contrast was that is largely recreational. Now some of the people there take that very seriously, and they'll spend hours working on medieval crafts and researching heraldry and all kinds of things. Nova Roma certainly has the option to do all of those things in a Roman setting. If you want to sew Roman clothes, there's somebody who can help you learn how to do that. If you want to cook Roman food, there's someone who can help you learn how to do that. So it's very open-ended. If it has a Roman theme and you want to explore it, just start talking to people here, and you'll find somebody who'll help you out. Numismatics, which is, I take it obviously seems like a great interest of yours. You may not, somebody who hasn't really thought about this might not really realize just how important coinage was back then and what it meant, and the political importance of coinage back in Roman times. And that's all something to learn about and explore. And it both holding, yeah, I'm making the gesture with my hand here in my lap where you can't see it on the camera, but just holding one of our coins and then holding a real Roman coin that is endured through the ages is something that is, it's if you've never done that before, it can be transformational. It can really connect you with the past and the present and the future in a way many other things can't. And Roman coins are not something that exists only in museums. There's a market for them. Obviously some of them are very, very valuable, but many of them are within the range of a very modest collector. And you can get a hold of something like that, and you can wonder, whose hands have this passed through in time, even when it was freshly minted. Where might it have been? Where might it have been spent? What was it spent on? It's just endless. It really is. The Rome was literally over time millions of different people, and they all had very rich and full lives. And to explore what that was and how they thought and how they approached their world, you could spend an entire lifetime doing it and never scratch the surface. So it's very open-ended, and it's very open to whatever you would want to do.
Absolutely. Regarding coins, I do have to say that I forgot to actually show the Nova Roman coins. I actually have both issuances, the first and the second, and it would have been nice. The first one has to do with the declaration of Nova Roma, which we're celebrating today as it's the 25th anniversary. And the second one was more of a classical style. On one side, you have the temple, presumably to Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, and then the other side you have a chariot with horses. Very, very dynamic imagery that was often, but not uniquely, found on Roman Republican coins. I do have last year, just to finish the topic of coins, I picked up, not in a very fine grade because it would have been way outside my budget, but a coin of Julius Caesar, and it says Dict Perpetuo, so dictator for life. And that coin was minted in Rome weeks before his assassination.
Yes.
So I always thought that, who handled this? What did this coin see? What did it mean to the person when Caesar was alive? And then what did it mean after the assassination? Because the coin probably was in circulation, for, I don't know, maybe for a few decades. Obviously, some Roman coins, like some emperors melted, coins from predecessors. So it all had to do with how much time was available for circulation and to find its way in the ground, for us to, to have those coins today. But switching gears a little bit, I do want to read a message in the comments, and I really appreciate it. I hope more come from Astronomus. He wrote, because ancient Rome was a source of so many things in our modern society, there is inherently a wide variety of topics and interests that fall under the category of Romanitas. And I have to say that's very true. And I would also say that there's all, like you mentioned, various interests of Romanitas and ancient Roman history. I have also specifically, a certain niche that I like to pursue, and that is to travel to ancient Roman ruins and museums. Now, some people can, due to their means and geographic locations, some people unfortunately can't. But I love to see ancient Roman ruins and walk through, the Forum, or walk through, for instance, in Tunisia, to walk through ancient Roman temples, and see the differences in architecture and style and art among the provinces. I mean, that really gets me going. I've been to over 800 different Roman ruins or museum collections in the world, and I can't wait to break 1,000, but it might be a few years apart. But here's the thing, though, is like, I also, behind the scenes, I've helped many people, plan out their trips or suggested places to see, whether it be museums or ruins or, just to really help people that might have overlooked something or they might have not known about a really cool place. Because, for instance, a lot of people have heard of Pompeii and they go to Pompeii, but I also suggest, well, if you're in the area, there's a bunch of things in the area, and I suggest what to see and how much time you need. So that's one way I also could contribute, and a lot of information like that, or about cooking, or about um, uh, ancient Roman helmets, or about prayers, or so many topics you might not see in the main forum, but there's so many people that you could just ask for help or assistance, or just for their opinion. And there's so many people willing to offer you that assistance. Now, we did
Well,
talk.
unquestionably, and that's really the joy and the beauty of Nova Roma, and really, it's a community, and that's what a community does. That's what a community is.
So, I mean, if anybody watching wants some information about traveling to, some place with ancient Roman ruins, please get in touch. Or wanting to start a Roman coin collection, also please get in touch. I could give a lot of information and tips. Switching gears once again. So Lentulus wanted us to talk about the past and the future of the past and the present of Nova Roma, which we have. There's one last thing to talk about, and it's the future of Nova Roma. So where do you see us in the next, let's not the next 25 years, because that's quite a long time. Let's say the next 3 to 5 years in the medium term, and how, not only where we will be, how do we reach that level?
Well, I have to tie that to the past too. And I don't really want to dwell on the Civil War, but it happened, and uh, I it certainly depressed our membership. It drove people away, and I have really completely been heartened by seeing the way people have come back together now. And I've used the analogy of a forest fire. When a forest burns, there's nothing but desolation and stubs of trees, charred stubs of trees, blackened forest. There's nothing left. And yet, if you come back in a few months, there are little sprouts poking through the embers. And you come back a year later, and there's growth maybe up to your knees, and you come back, and again and again and again, and it renews itself. And it's really been like that. Watching people first a trickle, and then a flood of people coming back, and seeing some of our old institutions, the way we go about the Ludi, the way we go about many of our in-person celebrations, seeing that blossom again has been very, very rewarding to me. And I don't see that stopping. I think I see us continuing along that path, and not just bringing in people who left and came back, but now growing in a way that we weren't able to for so many years. And that's very heartening. In 3 to 5 years, I wouldn't be shocked if we grew our numbers, just our raw numbers grew for, another half as much again or more. I don't think that's out of the question. I think you might see a little more travel. I think you might see more special interest groups. Certainly, we keep adopting new technology. We moved over to Discord, and when I first saw that, I think, well, that's the platform I use for gaming, right? Well, I guess we could use it for, and it turned out to be a real blessing. It's really helped keep us connected, and so I see more of that. I see as technology develops and as interest spreads, I see more and more people getting involved. one thing I think it's really important that we do is, we've kind of alluded to how the past has informed so much of our current society. We need to keep making those connections for people. When we make those connections, they'll want to know more about how we got here. And as they learn about how we got here, then that ignites the thirst for even more knowledge. And that's so I really see the community continuing to grow. Excuse me. One thing I did see that really impressed me and really heartened me, the current conflict in Eastern Europe. I really saw our members, people who had never met in person, assisting people to evacuate and get to safety. And that's what a community does. We look out for each other. And to me, that was just wonderful. That was really bringing out the best of us. And
Yeah,
I hope we don't need to do something like that again. But
I just want to
the fact
clarify.
it was there.
So there were numerous people helping in different ways. Some people were helped with transportation. Other people helped with lodging. Other people helped financially. So there were a lot of different people coming together in one way or multiple ways. So absolutely. We're also hoping that the conflict in Ukraine will be over soon, and that there because they also had an interesting project, the orb, to develop a Roman city there in Ukraine. And I'm very hopeful and optimistic that in the not too distant future, once the conflict is over, they could really get it going. Because I actually, I've told not only Titus, but also Hortensia Faustina that that I will actually go to Ukraine and I will visit the temple and the orbs, obviously, for see. After some time has passed, when the conflict is over. I mean, I'm not going to get on the next plane. I don't want to interfere. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that if the conflict is over tomorrow, I mean, it doesn't make sense to go in a week and jump on a plane, and to do some sightseeing as a tourist. Obviously, I mean, but I definitely
That's
looking
one of the
forward
most
to
frustrating things about this conflict for me was that project was moving along so well, and it just unfortunately happened to be in the one part of the world that was going to be making so many headlines. I think that's unfortunate. Do you now? I know I looked this up once. Do you recall in what part of Ukraine that that project is?
It's in Poltava. It's relatively in the east, but it's not in the far east, and it's not. It has not been close to the front lines between the Ukrainians and the Russian soldiers. And I'm in, like I said, I'm in contact with several people there, and recently they've had some blackouts, and there also been a few missile attacks, but they have not had the widespread devastation like in some of the other regions or continuous missile attacks. So they've been, obviously it's a terrible situation, but they've been more fortunate than a lot of other places in Ukraine has been.
Yes, yeah, and I you can see I'm looking off to the side. I just pulled that up on the map, and I guess I would feel a little better if it was on the other side of the Dnieper River, but it is what it is, and I really like as all of us. I hope that conflict comes to an end soon, and that we can all just get back to being Romans again.
Definitely. However, I do have to say that so the Corby family have never stopped being Roman. I mean, they still perform rituals. They still work on the temple. I believe last summer they finished the columns in front, and they even painted it. So I mean, work on the temple still continues. I believe that they have some new altars as well in front. So so that is as strong as ever. It's just the orb project, which is unfortunately put on hold. But I do find it also very appealing. There has been some suggestions in the past and some attempts to have a real life in-person community with Romans living with or next to other Romans, and not just within the same family. That's definitely appealing. Obviously, that doesn't work out for a lot of people due to work reasons. For one, I can't just tell my boss, hey, I'm moving to Poltava, Ukraine, but some people can, and I really would like to see that, and just to enjoy that dynamic. Obviously, when people ask me about my interest in ancient Roman history, some people kind of look down on it or think it's completely useless today. But it's so refreshing to speak with other people also interested in ancient Roman history and Nova Roma, and having this in person, or having this global community that you without the internet you might have never found.
Yes, yeah, and that's another thing. We could, we have had uh, in-person communities like that before. They were kind of ad hoc. They kind of always are. But that's something that could develop. And like I said, it's not for everybody. Maybe only for 1 in 100, but still, for those people, it's a viable outlet, and something good to do. And you know, every one of us chooses our own path through life. And as a certain philosopher once said, every man is the architect of his own fate. And if that's where your path goes, I would hope that there would be something available to do that.
Definitely. Now, let's change gears once again, and talk about the next 15 days, or the next 14 days, because we are celebrating over 2 weeks the 25th birthday of Rome. Now, I've seen some details today about what to expect, but maybe you could just fill the audience in.
Oh boy, and this is where I would be on a lot steadier ground if I was in a deal than as a praetor. I apologize for this, but no, we certainly have the regular Roman celebration of a momentous event, and that would be uh, various ceremonies, various reenactments around the world, uh, and online as well. We will have the online Ludi, and I just today saw some of the developments there, and it looks like our chariot races this year online are going to be more detailed than ever, and I'm looking forward to that. And of course, closing
And
ceremonies when the time comes, but in general, just a proper observance of an occasion that we should all take a little time to really sit back and enjoy what has been built, and enjoy our collective accomplishments.
absolutely. I will be participating in the chariot races. Now, this time, they actually ask you a lot of questions, not only your name, but the background of your chariot driver and which tactics your chariot driver will use, because there's so many different types, and everything will play a role to determine the outcome of the race. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I know Ingeniarius, I believe who's organizing it, is very big into streaming and multimedia. So I'm really interested to see, uh, how that plays out. I asked him, I, I asked him if he's gonna broadcast the chariot races as if he was a really enthusiastic announcer, and I kind of got a nod and a wink. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, that'll be great fun. So, and I want to say that was possible for anyone.
archaeological Spain. You'll also see cups, integral part of the entertainment person, but we could still, collectively participate in without any big halts. I appreciate everybody that comments is commenting right now, so we could read it off and talk about it. In the meantime, I'm curious, as you said that you had read the Roman into to do that. Lakes. One thing there are there 2 years ago, and the quality of the collections. Obviously, people that have donated to these museums probably have about a lot of oil money, and they were able to bid, on so many wonderful artifacts. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Have you been to a few of those museums yet,
Yes.
like in Houston or Dallas?
Yeah. I mean, and that's another way a meeting might happen. If you're in the Houston area, give me a shout, because Houston's an impressively big city and area. Compared to its it's a big city in population, but it's really huge in area. So it's not always practical for me to travel to the other side of town. It takes over an hour. It's 70 miles an hour. It takes over an hour to get to the other side of town. But if you're in Houston, definitely shoot me a note, and maybe we'll do something together. And whether it's Roman themed or not, either way, I'd be happy to meet some of you.
Nice. Yeah, in Houston, there's actually 3 different museums with ancient Roman items. Obviously, I believe it's called the Museum of Fine Arts, has
Yes.
just a large collection of Roman items. including a bronze portrait head of Caligula, which is stunning, absolutely stunning. And then in the other two museums, well, one of them has a huge collection of ancient ancient Egyptian artifacts. And in that, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think it's like the Natural History Museum, but I would have to double check. And within this huge collection, I'm thinking it's like the biggest or one of the biggest Egyptian collections in the United States. They have a bunch of ancient Roman items. And then there's a third museum, which is actually a private museum, and they have a few items such as these mummy masks, these portrait masks from ancient Egypt. So definitely, yeah, in Houston, a bunch to check out as well. In the comments, I saw that there were some items with the sound. Unfortunately, it happens, sound cuts in and out. I can't do much. Hopefully, though, since this stream is recorded, sometimes the sound could be better on the recorded version that will be uploaded in the future than perhaps what's broadcasted live. But anyways, I do thank you so much. I appreciate all the comments in the chat from Nerva and Astronomus. I definitely hope that you also have enjoyed the chat. And like I said, basically today is the celebration of Nova Roma turning 25. You could call it an anniversary or birthday, both of them work. And there's different ways to participate, whether it be ritual or just, thinking about Nova Roma or just cooking your favorite ancient Roman meal. There's a lot of ways just to celebrate and be a part of this meaningful day, and also festival that are going on for 2 weeks. So definitely a lot going on. And I just have to thank you so much for being a part of it. I know that as a praetor, you still have 9 more months. So we're going to see, what comes from the praetors, you and also Petronius over this time. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the future has in store for us.
Well, of course I am as well. And just to tie several threads back together at once, while you were talking, I went off and looked up what we have in Houston. And in addition to the Museum of Fine Arts and the Natural History Museum and the Mendel Collection, which all has Roman artifacts, I found that even the Houston Maritime Museum has amphorae.
Oh no,
so
I missed
Rome
it.
is everywhere. If you just have to look for it and ask around, and we can help you find it.
Definitely. I feel bad because I normally research so many different websites and books to see absolutely every Roman thing I could see, and I didn't know that there were amphorae there. Although I do have to say I've seen thousands of amphorae, so I'm not
Probably
sure if that
easier to find in Europe than over here.
Yeah, or also also in Turkey. I was in Bodrum last year. The underwater archaeology museum there is absolutely incredible. Really recommend that. Anyways, thank you so much. I know that we did this stream on short notice. Actually, yesterday we kind of had everything organized. So thank you so much for taking this time. It means a lot to me personally, and I hope that the people viewing live and also the people viewing in the future on Twitch or YouTube will, definitely enjoy it and appreciate you being here today as well.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, and for reaching out to, for presenting this to the community so they can all see what we're doing and what we're all about. And I'd just like to invite everybody to enjoy the celebration. It's a great time. It was hard to get here, and it was worth doing. And it only portends great things to come.
Absolutely. So I wish you and everybody in the chat a nice day. Valete, and happy birthday, Nova Roma.
Volete all. Volete optime.
Take care.